Hi Capricorn, this is your reading for the week of March 3rd, or whenever you find it and it resonates. So obviously, as we all know, in all of these group readings, it's not going to match for everybody. But the first thing that I saw when I started preparing to do this was a goat, of course, a mountain goat. Even though you're a sea goat, I saw a mountain goat. And he was sharpening his hooves, getting them ready to make the climb. He was also like kind of sanding off his horns to get them nice and ready to go. But it really felt like you were sharpening things up in order to be able to make a climb that might be difficult and to deal with whatever might come up for you, therefore the horns. And so then the song that came into my head was Green, Green, Green They Say, which is an old folk song from the New Christie Minstrels. And the song is about basically a drifter. But the part of the song that came to me was not about somebody just taking off and riding the rails. It was basically green, green, green they say on the far side of the hill. I'm going away to where the grass is greener still. So for me, this goes along with that sense of the goat climbing, getting ready to climb. I feel for some of you Capricorns, you're on the verge where you're seriously thinking of and planning some kind of change in your life that demands a little bit of courage and a sense of adventure, not just courage, but almost like a sense of adventure. And then I see like it's almost as though somebody has turned a dial in you, like it would have been a timer, and the timer has now to zero. It's like it's time now. The waiting time is over. And while there may still be some kind of doubt about where you're going or what you're doing, I really feel as though you're seeing now as whatever you're having to lose in order to make this happen. It really feels like this is a sense of adventure and a sense of liberation that goes with it. The thing that I'm also getting here with this is that for some of you in this position, we know that Capricorn can be a very, very structured sign. It's Earth. That's part of what comes with Capricorn. But sometimes Capricorn, you can be so determined and so regulated in how you perceive life, how you perceive yourself in life. It's like you become enamored of your own story, which of course all of us do to some degree, but I feel as though you have in some ways held on to it rigidly. If you're known for being a good father, you will kind of morph your life around that image. If you're known for being this, you'll really deliberately shape yourself around that, as opposed to letting the role organically change. Say, for example, as your children grow, or in the case of your work, as you move into a management position, you might still want to be somebody else, be that character that everybody was loved and wanted to party with, but now you're a manager and you can't. So it's like that sense of, those are just a couple of examples of how you might be, or how you might have held on to doing things in a certain way in life because you were unwilling to give up an identity that you had valued. Now what you're being asked to do is to look at this and say, how much of that connection to that image was about me looking for connection to the outside world because I wasn't really securely connected to myself inside. I didn't have a rich inner world. And I feel as though in some cases what has happened is it's been difficult for you to look deeply at the things in yourself that maybe you didn't particularly like so much, or that weren't supporting you so well. And so it just became easy to live with those images that made you feel good. I feel as though a lot of work has been done and that you're being courageous now. You may not be moving on yet in terms of how you're living, in terms of big changes you're making in your life. The adventure might very well be you looking inward and making that journey inward to look at those aspects of yourself that you have appreciated because other people like them. What do you like about you? What are you being able to sit with in yourself and really have compassion for and appreciate? Capricorn, you will do well at this point in time to remember a couple of things. One is your sense of humor. Whenever you start getting into concerns, when you start getting stuck, when you start getting critical of yourself, when you forget to focus on the positive and the image of, not just the image, but the feeling of where you want to be and the idea of how you might like to change your life, let yourself really touch into your sense of humor and let that lighten this process. Try not to make it quite so much work and really try to look at it as an adventure. The other thing is have compassion. Compassion is the kind of thing that especially when you're looking inward and you're trying to reconnect or develop a deeper inner life and a more loving connection to yourself. Compassion really, if you can be curious without being judgmental, discerning without being critical, it gives you the opportunity and the courage to be able to look deeply, to be able to go inward. If we can't have compassion for ourselves, it's very hard to look at the things that we judge badly or we judge harshly because there's no tenderness to it. So it can feel like we're attacking ourselves. And the other thing is, remember, you've got two cards here. How would you feel in life if you really thought God was absolutely, totally head over heels in love with you, regardless of what you've been, what you've done, all of the faults that you think you have, the parts of yourself that you haven't learned to love yet? How would you see yourself and how would you feel if you knew, which there is, that there was a divine presence that saw you just perfect the way you are because you're just living and learning and growing? That there is an essential part of you that is divine, that is living this life, and that there is a part of you that is connected to the divine that absolutely loves and adores you, and you can tune into that in yourself as well. When you go deeply enough, as you get to know yourself, that's why we do it, because then you get into that place where you are connected to that sense of love and loving in yourself, and it's no longer about the image. You're also being told angels everywhere. So this seems to be a time where you are being told there is presence, there is divine presence that you are being asked to look toward, to trust in, to anchor into as you're making these changes. Now, whether or not you've already done a lot of the inner work and this is an external expression of where you're going, or whether this is about you starting to embark on expressing or on experiencing the inner work, you're being told you've got support to do it, and you're being counseled. Set yourself a structure, set yourself something so that you don't get lost in all of it. You're comfortable with a structure. It's a lot easier for you if you have one. So if you can create this, if it's self-discovery, the act of self-discovery in something that has a little bit of a structure for you, just as opposed to random fugue states where you're going off into some kind of esoteric, you're going to be much better off. And the other thing too is, if this is something where it's embarking on a new way of doing things, a new activity, a new chance, taking a new chance on something, set yourself something that can anchor you back into that sense of the things about you that you appreciate. A gratitude list, including who you are. Maybe that's something you do every day. Compassion. Whenever you find yourself getting critical, that is your cue to then go back to, what if I'm just curious about this and wonder why it's like this, or wonder why I'm doing that? And to also to remember at certain points in the day that you are being supported, that there are angels among us, that there is divine presence in, around, and in you. All right, in the world around you and in you. And let yourself, if you can set yourself some anchor points in the day with activities that support that energy and support that activity, you're going to find that you're going to have a much easier flow. You're not going to have the kind of panic that sometimes can come when you start dismantling some of the old structures and habits. Because what are structures? Well, what are habits? Habits are structures that we've created within which our ego and our personality lives. So now you're taking some of those structures away. It's really good as you're building this new identity and this new life to have some structures in place so that you have the ability, you have the comfort of knowing you can move within this structure. You can grow within this new structure. Okay? I think that makes sense. I think if you go back and listen to it, it'll make sense. Capricorn, it's good. You've got the backing of the divine. It looks like you are really moving towards something quite adventurous and in an expansive way. In an expansive way. So good for you. Keep going. That's your reading for the week. God bless.